everyone, I'm Martin and welcome to another great edition for Astronomy for Beginners, and today I'm going to do a DIY guide on how to make a solar filter for your telescope. The reason why I'm doing this guide is the solar eclipse that's coming up very shortly on the 20th of March will be a very exciting period to start using your telescope and start observing. It's not quite the total eclipse as mentioned, but it's a partial eclipse, but it will be near enough as damn it as 95% coverage. This also applies in Europe as well, and it's such a great time. It's a great time to start viewing it or take images of it. Now, it's not quite a total eclipse, but there's one thing, as I mentioned before, about solar filters and using them. It's very crucial, even with an eclipse, even though the moon is in front of the sun, you still need to use a solar filter. Do not make the mistake using a telescope without using a solar filter, because if you put your eyes at the eyepiece and you start using it, you will lose your eyesight. I guarantee you that. So, as I mentioned before in my last guide on using solar filters, I used a glass type variant which goes over the objective lens or mirror, whatever telescope you've got, and it works by eliminating 99.9% of the harmful rays and filters only a small percent of the light coming through. So even with a total eclipse or partial eclipse, you still need to use a filter regardless. Now, solar filters, particularly the glass ones, are very expensive, and you can pay around about 50 to about 300, 400 pounds. However, not most of us can afford a glass type filter, so you can make one yourself very cheaply, but you must buy the proper decent solar film. And the reason why I'm saying this is there are so many different types of solar film. Do not buy any cheap quality solar film. Buy the best, and I think the best solar film you can buy is the Barda Planetarium Astros solar filter kit. Basically, you get like an A4 sheet, costs around about 24 euros, or works out in about £20, maybe a little bit less. It's very high quality, so you get very good filtration of 99.999%, but it will guarantee your safety on protecting your eyes and your equipment. This has been proven by a lot of astrophotographers as well, so it can be used for that. But bear in mind, make sure you get the right filter. Now, the reason why I'm saying get the right filter is when you order it, before you order it, usually a lot of good retailers, if you buy online, will ask what you want to use the solar film for. Now, this is the visual type, right, and it usually tells you a variety of things and all that in here, but there are instructions and all that. It does state on here, if you look carefully here, on the instructions itself, you've got the Barda Astro Solar Safety Film is available. Now, this is the A4 size, and it's got an optical density of 5,0. This is adequate for making your own solar filters and used for visual work. And it'll give you different size of other film you can buy, but at the bottom, if you're wanting a photographic one, you need to look at an optical density of 3.8. However, these are only suitable for astrophotography. So if you're taking photos of the sun, never use a photographic solar film for visual work. So just make sure you don't buy a photographic solar film for visual. You need to use the correct one. And obviously there's the little guidelines. It's very good, it's very well instructed manual on there. The solar film is in between the packaging, alright, so it's well protected and you can guarantee that there'll be less likely to be damage. However, do not disregard how much what the packaging say. Is when you do put on the filter, always double check, and when you're putting your filters together and you're cutting the pieces and all that, when you start using the filter for visual, make sure that before you use the filter, once you've made your filter, just put it in a nice strong light, look through it, and if you start seeing any points of light coming through, you mean basically what's happened is that foil is punctured, and it is literally like foil. Now do not get confused on using aluminium foil. This is not aluminium foil. Do not even use aluminium foil. But this is a special kind of foil that only allows a certain amount of light coming through, and never use anything else. Again, I've had people asking me over the forum or on Facebook, and they keep asking me, can I use welding glasses? Will they work? Don't. Do not use them. Alright, their only purposes are designed for welding. Now, welding glasses do actually eliminate some of the ultraviolet lights and all that, but there are different grades of welding glasses and face masks and stuff like that. But again, it's no guarantee that it will protect your eyes, because even though it doesn't appear bright, if it lets so much of the harmful rays get through that filter, it will blind your eyes and burn your retina of your eyes. So obviously do not use anything that's not designed for looking at the sun. Alright, good for welding, but not great for viewing at the sun. So when you buy stuff that's purposely made for that use. In other words, if you're going to buy a visual filter, you're going to use a solar filter, get the proper filter, and use the correct grade. So if it's photographic, it is fine for taking the images of the sun via camera. Not so great on using it through an eyepiece and looking at it through your own eyes. So get the right type of film on the job. However, if you get the visual, it doesn't matter either way. I always find that using the visual, you can still take photos through the visual film. It's just that it doesn't allow too much light through. But you can compensate that when you're using a webcam to adjust the exposure rating and stuff like that. So there are ways. So to be honest with you, I'd rather get the solar filter visual type of film. Now, Barda Planetarium are renowned for the quality, and it's been trialled and tested over the years, and a lot of top astrophotographers and astronomers use this, and I seriously recommend it. If there's anything else other than this, I would avoid it. I would, if you're going to make your own filter, buy the best film available. Again, it is still cheap than buying a cheap optical glass filter or some other brand that you don't know of and might not be great. Now, I'm a big believer in buy the best kit you can afford, but if you're going to use it for looking at the sun or that, then I would buy the best quality, without a doubt. Now, also this film is an A4 sheet, well protected. It is very fragile. It is exactly like aluminium foil. It's extremely fragile. So obviously when I go and show you how to make the filter, I'll show you how fragile it is. So you've got to be very, very careful when you're making a solar filter for yourself. Do not rush. Take your time. You've got plenty of time to try and complete the task in hand. But do not, believe me, do not rush the job. Do not try and bodge it by other means. But if you can try and follow my guide, you will get a really good, decent filter for yourself, and then very cheaply. I have to mention this. I can't guarantee you how well you make your filter. Now that just depends on how good you are DIY, but I am not responsible if you make a mistake and you damage the film on this, and so when you do make your filter, and I am not liable, because I highlighted is that everyone's different on DIY. I'm just giving you a bit of advice and some hints and tips on what you can do and all that. So please, I'm not responsible if you make a mistake and someone does unfortunately lose their eyesight. End of the day, as stated on this film, right, this is tested to a certain degree. Once you have fitted this film onto your and made it, the disclaimer for this is void. So you cannot sue the company. Basically, they manufactured this film as it is. Alright, so technically they are not responsible if you make a mistake whilst you're making your own filter and you damage it. It does highlight in the instructions. Alright, so again, I'm just giving you a bit of advice. I'm showing you a few hints and tips, and I do stress you, do not rush this job, because if you rush it and you make a mistake, if you damage that foil, you're going to lose your eyesight. So please take your time, follow the instructions that's stated on here, alright, and you can get a really good cheap solar filter. Now, as I mentioned before, that filter's been very expensive, so I'm making a solar filter for my 102mm refractor, which is an ideal instrument, I reckon, with its short focus, because I want to get as much of the sun and the moon in a big wide field of view as possible, especially if I'm going to fit my Zoo ASI 120 MC camera. I'm going to use mine for taking the images, because I do not want to miss this opportunity, especially this eclipse is the closest from a total eclipse by far. I mean, 95% is pretty good. I've seen partial eclipses during my lifetime, but nothing is compared to this one. So 20th of March is going to be a special day. I'm just praying that the clouds do not ruin that day. But believe me, I've purposely booked my leave for this so that I can get the chance to do this, because this is a one-off chance, and your guys do not want to miss this opportunity as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over my desk, and I'm going to show you what equipment you're going to need to make this filter. So the equipment you're going to need as follows is you're going to need obviously a solar filter film. Order the film. Now, sounds stupid. I know we've got less than a week for the partial or total eclipse if you're in certain areas, but believe me, I remember the Venus transit 2 years ago, and believe it or not, they completely sold out of all the solar filters, all the solar films and all that. So please order this really quickly, because there'll be a mad rush, and you will, if you don't get the film, you'll miss out. Alright, so please get it on order before you do anything. Order this online. You're going to need some cardboard. Now the cardboard doesn't have to be specific, but you can just use scrap cardboard. Alright. Any from packaging or something like that, something that will not cost you a lot of money, alright, or you find it. But please do not use the cardboard from cardboard boxes, because it needs to be a solid cardboard sheet. Alright, and the reason why it has to be a solid sheet is that if you use the boxes, you're never going to, when you wrap the cardboard box type round the tube, you're not going to get a perfectly decent circle. Layers, because that's what trouble with the cardboard on cardboard boxes is they have 2 layers, and then you've got a zigzag pattern in between that's laminated together to form the thickness. Alright, that's not what you want. So basically you just want solid thick cardboard like this. Doesn't really matter where you get it from. It could be packaging, whatever, but it needs to be solid cardboard. Okay. Then you're going to need some kind of ruler or straight edge. I use an engineer's square. Alright, because one, I like using the square because you can mark up the lines and you can mark them up squarely and in line. Alright, so no messing about. So I would use an engineer's square. If you don't, then use a normal 30 centimeter ruler. Alright, doesn't really matter, but as long as you can get your edges straight and when you're marking it up. Again, good old trusty pencil, or if you haven't got a pen, so you can mark up your lines you're cutting. Good old pair of scissors to cut the cardboard. Good old wood glue, and obviously when you're making your solar film, your solar filter, you can leave the cardboard as it is, but I'm a big believer if you're going to make something, and give it a bit of colour, just makes it look a bit more professional. And I'm just using just normal matte black spray paint. You can brush paint it, you can use felt tip pens to colour your filter and all that, but I'll explain later on that process. So, as I mentioned before, as on this card here, what I've done is I've measured 30 millimeters width strips. Now it doesn't matter how much or how long it has to be. If you don't have much card, you can just do strips like this. What these strips are is basically going to form the main body of your solar filter. So basically these strips will be wrapping around your diameter of your telescope, around the objective lens, and these strips will represent it as a cap. I'm making like a cap sort of type solar filter. But unfortunately I don't have enough card, so I basically done 30 millimeters width strips. So I basically marked it across here like so. I marked it across, yeah, 30, 30, 30. Then I line it up like so, and then I just score line across like so. That's why the engineer's square is so used for that. And again, I've got even strips like so, like that. Alright, basically these are going to form the side walls of my cap, so which I will show you later on. And then basically what you're going to do is use a trusty pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut each of these strips like so. And I keep cutting it nice and parallel, don't need to rush. Okay, so you need to cut each of these strips, and what these strips will do is, well, I'll show you now. So we're at one end of my telescope, and basically using these strips I've got here that I've cut out, I'm basically going to wrap these strips around the telescope, around the tube here, like so. So I'm going to wrap it on there. Now, top tip, when you're working near the telescope and all that, make sure you leave the dust cap on. You do not want to interfere with the optics of your telescope, so that if you drop glue in there or whatever, the cap's going to protect it. Alright, so make sure before you do anything, make sure the lens cap or mirror cap is in place before you do the job. Also, a point to remember is you do not have to make these strips to be 30 millimeters. Now, depending on the size of your telescope, but if you've got a telescope that is bigger than 4 inch or more, then I would recommend that you make your width of your strips a little bit bigger. Now, if you've got a 6-inch or 8-inch reflector or something, I will make your cap size around about 40mm to about 50mm maximum. The reason why I say that is that if you're making a lens cell as big as that, if you're making a solar filter as big as that, you don't want it to be too loose, and also you don't want the sidewalls to be too small with a big huge surface area, because what will happen is it might fling off. So you want it very secure. So a 4-inch like this, you can get away with 30mm width strips, and basically what you do is you basically wrap it around the telescope tube like so. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do. Now, as you can see here, I don't have enough the correct length of the cardboard, but it doesn't matter. Alright, it really doesn't matter, as long as if you get this cardboard all the way around, like you've seen here. Okay, what you do is you get another strip and you overlap it. Okay, so you don't need to worry about exact size and measurements, just overlap it. The main crucial part you're concerned about is making sure the initial wrap, so you get the basic shape of your solar filter. So you need to get those walls bang on the size, and then what you can do, you can either use tape once you've got it all secured like so. Okay, so once you've got it all secured, right, you can then tape it together, or you can use a bit of super glue, only a little bit, and then wrap it around there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap it round. I'm going to wrap it round like so. Unfortunately I can't show you at this angle because I need to make sure I get this right. So I'm going to dab a little bit of glue. You don't need a lot. Okay, doesn't matter if I waste a bit of card. So I secure it like so as best I can. Let it set first. Okay, once you've let the glue settle for a bit, you then wrap the filter around like so. Okay. Nice and tightly as well, so you need to get it nice and tight. So it's very crucial you wrap it round. Okay, doesn't matter if you overlap. Then using a bit of glue. If the glue doesn't bond, you can use sellotape, alright, for this part. Unfortunately the super glue didn't bond, so I'm just going to use a bit of wood glue. Luckily this wood glue sets quite quickly, so I don't have to wait that long. So basically once I've got it in line, like so, and then I have to, for this filter I have to let it settle. Okay, so this is very crucial, I let this set in so like that. It doesn't matter if you overlap, because you can always sand this part down, which will be apparent as I go progress through the video. Just be careful not to use too much glue, because you don't want to stick this onto your telescope. Again, you can use sellotape for this process, because sellotape might be a better option just for this process. So let this settle in. It'll take a while, it takes about 5 minutes for this to set. And now what we've got now is the basic shape of my filter wall. So what we'll do is now, we'll let this settle in a bit, let it dry, and we'll come back to it. We'll give it about 10 minutes for this glue to dry, because obviously it takes 5 minutes for this glue, but it just depends on what glue you use. Again, if you're using sellotape, you don't need to wait, you can do this straight away. So we're basically going to take off the lens cap, and as you can see is we'll draw out the actual tube, and you can see through the basic shape being wrapped around tightly around this objective lens tube. This will now give you the basic shape of your filter, okay, like so. So now that is, at the moment, that is the actual diameter of your telescope tube, and then as you come to fit it like so, it's nice and snug, and that's what you want. Alright, if you make it too loose, you might get problems. It's very crucial you try and get this to push fit like that. It's alright, and it's recommended if you make a mistake and it's not quite right, and then what I do is I'll just make another one. Okay, that's what you're after. Once you're done now, you place it back on there, and then we're going to put the cap in place. So we're going to put it back again, line it up, and then what we're going to do is do this. So get yourself a new strip, and what you're going to do is you're going to use a bit of wood glue, and you basically apply wood glue sparingly, not too much, but just enough. Okay, so you're going to have wood glue here, and again what you're doing is you carefully relayer all the way around like so, and what you're doing is you're wrapping this and you're creating a layer. Alright, so you keep doing this and you keep wrapping it and wrapping it and wrapping it. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to wrap it all around. Like so. And what you do is you let this layer settle, and then what you do then is you get another strip, and then you keep wrapping this round again, let the glue dry, and keep doing it to about 3 to 4 layers. Alright, and what you're doing is you're creating a hard, robust wall. So that will reinforce the strength of it, makes it stronger. Right, so it won't break and all that. And basically you're just laminating these cardboard sheets together. Doesn't matter if you overlap, you're just basically reinforcing that side wall. Alright, so you need to put loads and loads of layers. Can take a while depending on what glue you're using, but I would recommend that you get a wood glue that dries like this one, for example, dries in 5 minutes. So get something similar to that, and you just keep wrapping it round, put another layer until you've got the desired wall you want. So this is what I'm going to do now, is adding more layers. Right, after I left it to dry, I give it about an hour, then I put another strip on there, same again, wait another hour, and keep doing that until once you're happy on the level of thickness, and also determine on how much card you want to use. Basically giving around about 7 to 8 layers, and you should have something like this. I'm going to take the dust cap off, ensure that there's no traces of glue that's on there. If it does, this is the reason why I use wood glue, because you can peel it off on this metal surface because it doesn't bond. So always use a good wood glue. Now basically it does prise off very tightly like so, and that's exactly what you want, something very tight, and you should get something like this. Basically, this is a perfect round circle of the outside diameter of your cap, and this will fit onto your telescope nice and snugly, so when you come to plug it on, it's not going to fall off, being loose, and it's quite sturdy and it's safe. Again, after putting a lot of layers, you'll probably find from here there's the surface is not as smooth, but we can alter that by using a bit of sandpaper and just rub it down so it's nice and smooth, and that's what we're going to do now. So on the desk, and I'm going to use some sandpaper, and I have basically a 40 grit sandpaper, which is quite rough, so I can take off a lot of material. I have a 60 grit, a little bit finer, just remove a mild amount of material, and then I've got a 80 grit, which is really fine, so you get it's just move it off. And what I'm doing is I'm going to use the hard grit one, and basically I'm going to put it flat on the surface like so, and basically I'm just going to rub it across like so. Just keep doing it. So you get it nice and flush. Just keep moving all that material. And then we're going to use some medium stuff, just to make it much more smoother. With that, then we'll go to much finer stuff. Give it a nice clean finish. So you've got a nice clean surface, and it's all now ready to process on the next stage. Basically, what we're going to do is, before we fix the filter, we're going to make I'm going to make the outer covers, and to do this is that I've got my piece of card, and I'm going to place my lid, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle using a pencil or pen, whatever description, and you just draw around the outside circumference all the way around. So you're going to have loads of circles. Then what I'll do is, you don't have to do it, but I'll do it anyway, is get the pencil and draw from the inside. Okay, so you draw from the inside. Okay, that roughly gives you the sort of filter from the other end. And I'm going to draw a series of these. Draw my last final one. You can make more of these if you wish to make the lid even stronger, but you don't have to. So basically, I've got 3 rough shapes, and basically these are going to be the cap ends, and this will give me a good definition on the lid. Now, what these are going to do is, when I cut them out, I'll cut them out. So I'm going to cut them out into circles like so. It doesn't matter if it's not quite round. Okay, the main part is in the middle. Okay, so you cut more of these until you get all 3 pieces cut. So once you've got 3 pieces, you can either what you're trying to do is you're trying to cut a hollow circle around here, like so. You can either cut it as it is, which is great, but I find that when you cut that sort of length, is that there's not much material holding the filter together. So alternatively, if you grab the juice shield on the ST4, for example, you can prise the juice shield off. flops up like that. When you do that, you can level it down. Okay, be careful, it's a clean surface, you don't want to damage the lens, like so, and you can rest it on there, like so. And then what you can see is just line it up. Okay, get a pencil and just draw around. So you just draw around, and then it gives you a true aperture of your telescope lens or mirror. So basically what we're going to do is using this as a guide. Now because I've got nothing to pierce through, you can alternatively use, what you're going to do now is use a sharp blade and just put a piercing hole in the middle, okay? Okay, put piercing hole in the middle, and then what you're going to do, get a trusty pair of scissors and then start making your way round the inside and just cut away, okay, like so. So then you've got a perfect circle. And then what you're going to do with this perfect circle, line it up to your other covers or your other lids, place it nice and neatly, and then using a pencil and draw again at the inside. Okay, and then once you've got your circles, you do the same procedure again and you cut from the inside again. Okay, I've got my 3 circles. Now, you don't have to do this procedure. You can start on your putting your solar filter. I really want to spray this, so to make it look sort of nice and professional. Doesn't matter what colour you use, but what I'm going to use a matte black spray paint. And I'm basically going to paint all over these first, leave them to dry. Once they're dried, then I can start prepping up my filter. Once you've spray painted them, okay, they look so much better when they look spray painted. I mean, the good thing is you don't have to spray paint them, but I find it's quicker to do anyway. And but you can paint brush them. You know, just use a bit of normal acrylic paint would be alright, but I just prefer to do the lazy way and just like to get the paint sprayed on there and let it dry. So what we'll do is, now you can make loads of these circles, doesn't matter what, but the more you make them, you can make them out of thicker card. Unfortunately I don't have thicker card to do it. So what I do is like the same sort of principle on this is gluing each strip. Basically I'm going to glue just 2 of these together just to give it a little bit, more strength. You can use super glue for this one. You don't really need to use wood glue, but I'm just going to use wood glue anyway, and just put some wood glue across here like so. Okay, you don't need to use too much. Right, and once I've done that, I just then affix my cap together like so. So I'm just going to glue, this is going to be my front end of the cap, and you can just put as many of these layers as you want. The stronger the better. You can use thicker card if you've got thick card. Getting it thick and more rigid will help it a bit more stronger. So basically let that settle, and we'll proceed to the next step. Make sure your area is clean, dust free. Make sure there's no anything that's going to get onto the filter. itself. And basically we are going to open the filter carefully. It's very crucial that you're extremely careful with this film because it's very delicate. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to carefully prise it out of the package like so. You can just see the filter. Okay, so we're going to, because you've got A4, you don't want to do a mistake. You're going to waste another 20 quid. So get it right first time. You prise a piece like so. Now you don't have to expose it all. This film is coated both sides, so it doesn't matter which way you put it, but basically you're going to expose a little bit of the film and you're going to place it on there so that you use less material. So in theory you could actually make maybe 2, maybe 3 filters. So you can actually make one for the finder scope, or you could make another one for another small refractor. But a sheet this size, you could probably get away with using a big aperture of 130 millimeters, or at 6 inches, if you can get it to fit. I'm going to use the bottom corner, like so. Okay, I'm going to use the bottom corner, and then what I'm going to do is carefully, so we're going to use some wood glue. Okay, and we're just going to use a little bit of glue on one of the circles, like so. You don't need to use a lot, just a nice little thin smear. And then what we're going to do is place the circlet carefully over the film, like so. Okay, and then just leave it to dry. Then carefully get a sharp knife. You can use a pair of scissors to cut the material, but be careful when using scissors, because as you're cutting around it you may damage the film, or you might give it the film a ripple effect. Now as I fold this back, the film is nice and straight. Now a lot of people have made solar filters, found that using the solar filters you'll get this like ripple effect, but we don't want to do that. We want to try and get the nice even surface on the film. So what we do is we carefully get a sharp knife and cut around the circle. Alright, so basically using the protective film, you don't mark the film itself, just carefully go around, scar a line all the way across the outside of the film, like so. So the film that you cut, like so, comes off like that. Okay, so you go all the way around, cutting the film bit by bit. And there you go. So once we cut the circle, place the protective film over, like so. Make sure it covers the cardboard. Okay. Place the outer cover here. and you can now safely use that again for other stuff. And the beauty of this technique is, as you can see here, I have got no rippling on the surface. It's dead straight. As you can see here, there's no rippling. It doesn't matter if you overlap, okay, you can trim the edges down, but the main thing is focus on here. You don't want this inside circle, anything inside that damaged. So obviously check on the strong light and see if you haven't marked it or haven't damaged it. If you're looking for a fluorescent light, and if you have damaged it, you will know. You'll see a light that will pierce through. This filter is designed so that you cannot see any of the piercings and all that. Now if you get a pinpoint prick or a damaged part that goes through that filter, then do not use it. Do not use it for the sun. If you do damage it in the process, do yourself a favour, make yourself another one. Alright, make yourself another one regardless. So using this technique, I could in theory make another one using the same A4 sheet. Also I maintained it so it's nice and flat and it's still protected. Alright, so if I have damaged it in the process, I do another one and save a little bit of money. From the look of this, it looks like I can make two of these of the 102mm and maybe a 50mm one for my finer scope. So as you can see, I've got this nice straight edge, nice surface. So what we'll do is for the edges, I just straighten up the edges using a pair of scissors, okay, and just carefully just trim the edges. And as you can see, it's looking very nice. I've not damaged it by any means. So what we're going to do now is flip it on its other side. Okay, and again you can see where the glue is held in. So again, to protect the filter, using the packaging, okay, I'm going to put the inner circle inside there, using some wood glue, using a little bit of glue, just a small strand of glue. Okay, very thin strand of glue. I'm going to fix the filter. Okay. Like so. Okay, that what it's doing is going to reinforce the filter. Because of the filter being very reflective, don't worry if you get a bit of dust on there, alright? Whatever you do, don't try and brush it off or try and do something like try and clean it off with a cloth or something like that. Unfortunately, because of this film is very delicate, okay, very thin, you do not want to risk damaging it. It's extremely delicate. So if you get any dust particles, alright, quick solution is this. Quick solution is get a blow brush, and that's all you gotta do. Okay, that's all you gotta do is blow it off. A camel hair brush or something like that, it just doesn't work, and you may damage the filter and pierce it. So good old blow brush and just gently blow it off. That's the only way you're going to clean it. Because of the film being very delicate, then leave it well alone. A bit of dust does not harm the filter itself, and it won't degrade the performance of the viewing of the through the telescope. So basically we're going to let this settle in. Okay, let this settle in, let it dry for about half an hour. Okay, the filter is almost done, like so. But before we proceed further, we'll put the filter on the protective packaging to one side, clean all the area, and then we go to our filter. We now go to our filter cap structure. As you see, it's now painted, it's now dry. Now, try not to spray paint or paint over the inside. Okay? Now, I've done this purposely as a mistake so that you guys will not make the mistake. So basically what I've done, I purposely spray painted by accident from the inside. Now if you do that, you will then adjust the diameter, inside diameter, so it fits into the telescope. Now if you do that, then by all means wait for the paint to dry, and then carefully, using some sandpaper, is clean it up, okay, if you spray over it. Alright, you don't want to change the diameter, the inside diameter of this cap. So if you do that, bit of sandpaper and rub it down, fix it on the telescope, see if it's okay. If it isn't, just keep sanding it down until it does fit. Okay, so ideally, if you're going to paint it, you can either just carefully make sure you don't do the inside. Okay, so don't paint the inside, don't have to paint the inside. We're going to use the good old trusty wood glue, and we are going to smear some glue all the way around, carefully, that you don't drip the glue onto the side wall. So, okay, so once you're done with that, place the cap, and then what we're going to do now is lift the outer cover and then just simply rest it on like so, carefully, and just let it sit there. Okay, get the protective packaging or something clean. We're going to flip it, holding the cover, flip it round like so. If you do get glue on the edges of the filter, like here, don't, whatever you do, touch it. Okay, if you do get edges on the glue on the filter, just leave it alone. Okay, don't faff about with it. That's a clear example here. Don't faff about with it, just leave it alone. Okay, and just let it settle. Okay, so the glue will dry out, so whatever you do, do not start poking stuff in there trying to clean up the glue. If you do get glue on there, don't poke it with anything else, just leave it well alone and let it settle. Okay, and just let it dry overnight. Now, to protect the inside of the filter whilst it's drying, alternatively get just a piece of paper or something like that, and then place it over the top like so, and then just leave it overnight to dry. So after you're waiting for your sun filter to dry, And what you could be doing is, with the existing film you got, spare film you got, alright, it's ideal that you keep the filter, whatever you got spare, is put it back in its protective packaging. So you basically leaving the outer cover on, and then place it back into the polythene bag it came in. Alright, like so. Put it into its original parcel and then place it in there, like so. Okay. And there you go. Now you've got the packaging all protected and ready to be used in case the filters are damaged, or you can use it for other things. Alright, but now you can use this whatever you got spare, and you can make a series of different filters with the A4 sheet. You can save a lot of money and time by just doing careful precautions and practices, so that you not only to make it cheaper for you, but also maximise and get as much of this filter as possible. So the A4 is quite a decent size. You can do a lot of size filters with the A4. Ideally around about 5, maybe 6 inch aperture at a push. But if you're looking for bigger filters like 8 inch or more, then I would seriously recommend that you look into getting a Barda film. Get the 50cm sizes if you're making solar filters for larger apertures. So my solar filter's dried. As you can see, I've got no horrible rippling effects on there. It's nice and straight. Okay, do not worry if it overlaps the outer cover. Okay, the main purpose is making sure that that glue has dried. And also, doesn't matter if you've got a bit of glue on the filter, leave it alone, don't fuss with it. Alright, if you get a bit of dust, you use an air blower, alright, just to get the mild dust off from the inside and out, carefully. And there you go. It's a well-made DIY filter. Again, before you use any filter, always check the filter itself every time. Before you use it, check the inside, see if it's not damaged or pierced, and shine it against a strong light, so like a fluorescent light, and check if any light passes through. Now if it does have any, don't use a filter, do yourself a favour, make another one. Regardless if it's a slight piercing hole and you think you can get away with using it, do not use it, because I'm telling you now, if you get one slight pierced hole in here and you do use it and you put your eye into the eyepiece, you are going to burn the retinas of your eyes. So please, if you do get any slight piercing and light does get through, do yourself a favour, do not use a filter, bin it straight away, destroy the filter film itself so that no one else uses it in the process. Once you have got a filter, to use a filter, I'll say quick check. Take off the dust cap and then carefully slot the filter in place. See how secure that is. This is the reason why this type that I've made I prefer, because what that does is it fits in the on the dew shield, and if anyone tries to push it, the telescope, or the wind catches over it, this is very secure. This isn't going nowhere. So you can make a DIY filter of this type. There's a lot of amateur astronomers out there prefer to make the filter with just a circlet lid and placed over. We are making this this rim, and they just basically place it over the top. Usually have a couple of screws or something that sticks out that supports it and just slits on. Personally, I do not like using them. One, because if there's a slight wind and it blows off, if you're happen to be looking through the eyepiece and it blows off, you're going to lose your eyesight. So this is the reason why I prefer to use this design, because it's a lot more secure, it's purposely built, it's durable, and it slots in the telescope perfectly. So if you do get a slight wind, this is not coming off. Even when I'm shaking them out, that is not going. That's very secure, and that's what you want. So my top tip recommendations is build a solar filter of similar design with what I've done. Because the film is very delicate, I do not recommend you using any optical cleaners or lens cleaners or tissues or something like that. Do not use any of them by all means, because you're more chance of damaging the coating on the film, so don't risk it. And number one top tip is to ensure that your filter is going to you get the most out of this filter and you can use it again. I recommend that you get a nice container, take out the filter carefully and place it in a nice secure container. Okay, and you just fit it in like so. Alright, get a container that's just fits the filter, so it's nice and packed and it doesn't rattle about. Unfortunately, this is not an adequate container, it's a bit big. This filter, this container is perfect for my 5-inch solar glass filter for my Maxitop 127, so it fits that. So I would recommend that you get something as small as this. You know, get it slightly smaller so the filter just fits in nice and tight and doesn't shake about. So it's not rubbing against the bottom where it might damage the film itself. So keep it like that. Alright, as you can see here, it's nice and secure. And as we fit it on, nice and snugly. So now this filter, I can use it again for many occasions. So now we've got a filter now that I'm now ready to image and to look at the solar eclipse, which is going to be a very exciting moment. It is going to happen on the 20th of March, and the timings is usually around about 9:30 in the UK and 10:30 in Europe. So if you've got stellarium, use stellarium and find out your timings in your local observing site, and it will give you the exact timings and when it's going to happen. What I would seriously recommend you guys and girls is, before it happens, give yourself a good hour and a half getting your kit ready and set up, ready to go, making sure that your setup's ready, your cameras are set, and it gives the time for the scope to cool down to the exact temperature in the surrounding area, so that you're going to get the maximum best views as possible, and also good captures for the cameras. So give yourself a good hour and a half, getting yourselves prepped up, ready to go, and enjoy the solar eclipse. So I hope you've learned a lot from this DIY guide. I certainly have. This is the first time I actually made myself a solar filter, and to be honest with you, it's not very complicated. I was going to make the solar filter out of wood, but I realised that it's not always achievable for most people. So I thought of making a filter so that you can make for yourselves with not much equipment to set it up, and it's a good job. And as you see, this filter is good quality, it's very sturdy. Please feel free to comment on this guide, and we'd love to see your solar eclipse images. Please share it on our forum for astronomy for beginners, and we'd love to see how you get on. And good luck on the solar eclipse, and thanks for watching, and clear skies.